until I have things that I want to comment on. So if you call on me at all, it may take a second to reply.
Okay.
If only we could mute him in real. We are reconvened into open session. At this time, we'll have our first opportunity for public comments. School board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of the meeting when recognized by the board president. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask that comments begin by providing your name, address, and school district in which you reside. Would anyone like to make a public comment at this point? Hi, Alyssa, come on up.
Hello, I think I know most of you, but I just wanted to formally introduce myself. My name is Alyssa Sullivan, and I live at 229 Carouche, just here off of Sylvester. I'm a parent of children at Bristol and Steger, and I am the Bristol PTO Executive Board Liaison to the school board meetings. So you'll see me here in attendance, and I have mentioned to the Bristol PTO at the general meeting that I am available to bring any comments that the PTO might have, or to usher in and sit with any other PTO parents who might want to come and just make the board meetings more accessible to them. So likewise, I know that we have board member representatives who are officially attached to Bristol, but likewise, if there's any communication that you want to get to the Bristol PTO, I'm your girl. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, the correspondence log has been updated and is provided in your materials. At this time, we'll do celebrations from board members, and I'm going to start with you, Dr. Stricker.
Had a great time and saw Dr. Simpson there at the Hickson open house, and everybody was rip-raring to go, and parents were navigating the school setting, so they were all excited.
Great. Steve.
Just briefly, really pleased to continue receiving good feedback about our teams and activities as they participate outside of our own school district area, and from both officials and other coaches and everything. We got another one that we were told about today regarding the football game this past past Friday night, or 2 Friday nights ago. I was on vacation last week, so I was catching up my emails and read that one. So really pleased that our teams and our coaches are showing great character.
Okay, I was at the Visions of America multimedia presentation Saturday night. It was absolutely fantastic. Joe Somm did a really good job showing his vision of America and supporting democracy. And if anyone's interested, he's selling a coffee table book, normally for $75 for $40, and I'll even inscribe it, and I have one order form if anybody's interested. But I thought it was a nice way to open up the newly remodeled auditorium to the public. I saw several people who hadn't been in the high school for years, and they just enjoyed the opportunity to be there and to see what an interesting career this guy's had. That's it.
I was at the high school open house, which was in the brand new auditorium, which was successful and well attended, lots of positive energy there. And I also have gotten more emails, phone calls, etc., from people happy about how well Hickson is going, and how smooth the transition's been, and how on top of things the new principal is. So lots of positive things happening at Hickson.
Thank you.
Would you like to share something?
I would. The Branch Literary Magazine for the high school is having its first issue this week. It's looking good and everything. And then also, as of me, we have our 5th year of theater representatives for Webster Groves.
I'd just like to encourage the communities to still attend our Meet the Board at Panera or Brico on the first Sunday every month. We're picking up steam, a lot of good conversations, and I think the community is starting to appreciate that openness and being able to talk in a public forum.
I agree. Great opportunity to sit down and just visit with, 2 or 3 board members. I just want to add a celebration regarding the coffee shop at Webster Groves High School. I think it's the greatest thing. It's staffed by SSD students. I've already heard from parents who have kids who work there, and from students at the high school about what a first of all, the kids love it because they get coffee, and just a really positive experience for the kids that are working there, so I just want to mention that. All right, administrators?
Thank you. Kathy, do you have
I
anything?
do, I have a couple. We had several students chosen for special ensembles in the community music school. They are Alex Bird, Anna Busler, Brady Chrysler, Hope Johnson, Fiona Carton, Ava Andrews, Nina Isom, Alex McCoy, Jessica Powell, Elia Kilmade, Ray Wetzelian, Derek White, and Mallory Stewart, who is actually a Hickson student, all the rest of them high school. The High School History Club coordinated a commemoration of September 11th today, including a speech during announcements and a banner for all students to sign thanking local first responders. And the class of 1963 has nearly reached its goal of raising $63,000 for the Howard A. Ladd Fund for high school.
Thank you. And you guys shared some of mine, so I won't go into those. Some additional celebrations. I had a Meet the Superintendent event. I know it sounds really exciting to you students, but it was at Einstein's. In the past, we had tried to make me the main draw, which didn't yield high numbers, shockingly. So we decided to go to spots where the people were, and so we went to Einstein's for breakfast, and we kind of purchased, they have like these new little bagel bites that have, are infused with cream cheese, and so got to meet a whole lot of people. I think maybe one person came to meet me, but it was really fun. I got to meet a lot of people, and the next event is going to be at Lucky's during lunchtime, so hoping to hit a different crowd at that restaurant. So that was good. September 1st, our entire district staff had the opportunity to see the Reverend Starsky Wilson, who's the head of the Deaconess Foundation and was the co-chair, appointed by the governor as the co-chair of the Ferguson Commission. And I think I speak for just about all staff and anybody I spoke to. The man is just absolutely amazing. He's inspiring. So he spoke to a lot of us about understanding. It's kind of like that workshop I attended that I shared about last time. Understanding and going after systemic racism and oppression and bias. And it was really inspiring. We did videotape it. He agreed to be videotaped. We didn't ask him to share it, but what I was going to do is just get his permission to at least at minimum share it with you all so you can watch it. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. It was outstanding. Tomorrow I'm going to participate with high school staff in an anti-discrimination training through the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. So we have this program going on where we're going to have probably about 15 of us as the adults go through the training tomorrow. And then we have about 25 students who committed to approximately 3 days of training, which included giving up time on a Saturday to participate. And it's really how can they be empowered to be leaders in anti-bias, anti-racism as they see it, as it emerges. You're going to be a part of it. I saw your name on there, Ms. Percelli. So I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it'll be good for our school, it'll be good for interschool, but I think it's going to be outstanding. And that's it. Tonight we have our state championship high school girls soccer team from last year. And I'll turn it over to Coach Champion in a moment. But just all of us are aware of what happened last year. And try not to get emotional talking about it, but this kind of team of destiny that came together and did these really great things. And but from the start of the year to the end, I mean, they were just absolutely amazing. And some of the highlights for me, I've got a 10-year-old daughter. And so we got to see a lot of the playoff games. We went to Kansas City for the final games. And the class that these young ladies showed in winning was just so good. And so, yeah, they're talented. Yeah, they end up like tops in the country, top 5 in the country. That's a really big deal. But just the class that they showed all the way throughout, it was so nice to be sitting by my daughter and having other people see Webster and them represented in such a way. So tonight we're here to honor them. They've kind of been on this victory tour all over locally.
For the last stop, or?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe not. But I just found out tonight that Coach Champion, who was his first year as a Webster Groves high school girls coach, also teaches some of our students at Vista in the alternative school, where we have different seats for our students. So he's been a teacher in the Kirkwood School District. So I'll turn over him, any highlights he wants to share about the season, and then give these young ladies an opportunity to introduce themselves. And
they're all laughing because they know I won't read speeches.
it can be short. It's okay.
It will be short. It was great group of kids that had a great season, and it was one of those kind of where everything just fell into place. Some of the highlights are, we had a ton of kids that made the All-State team. Bell was on the All-State team. Izzy Kemp scored the first goal in the state final. We had an All-American. Megan made the All-American team. They ended up ranked number 4 nationally, and that's pretty nice. You know, when you consider the quality, you know, the California teams and the Texas teams where a lot of good players come from. So they had a really good run, and we just had that one darn loss. But other than that, some spectacular things. Megan scored the goal of the week on ESPN Sports Center. So it's kind of cool to see all the baseball professional players going in, and she was the #1 highlight. So that was a nice deal. But overall, it was a great group of kids. They very coachable, did everything we asked them. Even though we changed a few things up, and I think it was just a pleasure to coach them. Yeah, they deserve the state championship. They did a really good job.
Yeah, awesome. Well, ladies, if you just want to just introduce yourselves, and maybe if there's anybody here with you, and if there's anything you want to share, just a real quick highlight from the season. If we have any seniors tonight, if you're thinking about next year and what you might study, we normally ask our seniors to share that. So
I would say all 10 or so seniors are off in college playing last year's seniors. So this is kind of what's left.
one of you just want to start the run?
Yeah. I'm Natalie Anderman. I'm a junior, and
I'm Sarah Richards. I'm a junior as well, and I'm the manager. I'm Zoe Schultz. I'm a junior as well, and I'm a player. I'm Katie Conley, and I'm a senior player also.
Katie, you know about any thoughts on next year?
Looking into marketing, absolutely.
Cool.
I'm Claire Berchelli. I'm a senior, and I'm looking into studying either marketing or criminal psychology. I'm Isabel Burke, and my highlight was when we beat Summit and Megan scored the goal. And I'm going to sleep play soccer and double upsetting.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm Grace Bach. I'm a sophomore, and I was pulled up to varsity like in the middle of the season. I wasn't originally on it, and it was really exciting just to be part of it, and then go to state and everything.
Played in state final, did a great job.
One of my Hudson students from back in the day, right?
I'm
Thank
Izzy
you.
Hines. I'm a sophomore, and sitting with her, I was pulled up late in the season.
Scored the first goal in the state final.
Very fast you are. Well, thank you, ladies. I don't know if board members want to add anything, but we just can't thank you enough for being here, and send you congratulations and good jobs. Amazing.
I want to add something. I've always been proud of the women's soccer at our high school. It has always had one of the highest GPAs of any teams anywhere. That is really wonderful. Keep it up.
If I could add too, I shared a lot of the ongoing highlights with some of my classmates from Webster from 30-some plus years ago, and many of them were early players in the program when it had not been around for just a few years. And they were just ecstatic to hear how well you guys were doing and how well you were carrying on the tradition and just setting the bar at the ultimate level, and you reached it, and that's awesome. So passing along their thanks and their congratulations to you guys for making them proud.
Along with the GPA, I just submitted that to the National Soccer Coaches Association for recognition, so they have a 3.9.
Yay.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, and if you have other things to do besides attend the board meeting and you want to slip out, you're more than welcome to slip out now.
Parents,
Okay.
thank you for those in
Yeah.
attendance as well. Absolutely.
you all have some upcoming events on the board calendar, put it in your agenda. If there's anything missing or shouldn't be on here, please let Sherry know. And at this time, we'll do reports from superintendent and staff. John.
All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ellerman for update on property tax rates.
Good evening. Included with your board materials for this evening is a draft notice of the property tax rate hearing, which will be held just prior to the next Board of Education meeting in 2 weeks at 6:30 on September 25th, 2017. Normally, the district would have held this hearing this evening, 2 weeks prior to the board's approval of the rates. However, it came to our attention that the board policy requires notice of any public tax rate hearing to either be published or posted at least 7 days prior to the hearing. Since the notice wasn't published in the Webster and Kirkwood Times until this past Friday, it was necessary to reschedule that hearing. But that's probably just as well, since the school district expects to receive updated property assessed valuations just actually in the next few days, which probably will affect the calculation of the final tax rates anyway. Usually we have to put a caveat in when we talk about the tax rates in advance that if we receive updated information that the rates could be subject to change. Since we'll have all of that final information when we have the hearing on the 25th and then the board approves them that evening, we won't have to have that caveat. In the meantime, based on current data, overall assessed valuation increased by 8.9% compared to last year, 2017, so reassessment year, odd-numbered years. Nearly all of that increase was due to rising real estate values through reassessment. Reassessment accounted for about 8.5% of that 8.9%. So you can see the lion's share of that was from reassessment, with only about 0.4% coming from new construction and personal property additions. Of that 8.5% increase due to reassessment, the district's allowed to retain CPI, which is 2.1%, but it's required to roll back for anything above CPI. So the district has to roll back for that 6.4% above the 2.1% due to reassessment, which means based on about a $5 tax rate, 6.4%, we'll be rolling the tax rate back 30 to 33 cents, depending on whether we're looking at residential property rate or the commercial property rate. And that is indicated in the property tax rate hearing notice that was included in your board materials. If you look at last year's rate and then what the preliminary rate would be based on the current data we have before we get the update, you can see how that rate changes. We expect the residential rate to fall below $5 to about $4.75, while the commercial rate falls to about $4.97. Again, those rates will probably change slightly as when we receive new assessed valuations in the next few days. Those rates also include continuation of the 1 cent voluntary rollback for full-day kindergarten tuition that the board approved last year. So that's good news for both the taxpayers. It's also good news for the district, as it puts us well below the $6 threshold where a supermajority is required for any future potential tax rate increase. We're not looking at a tax rate increase now, but it's nice to have a big margin between where our tax rate is and where that threshold for requiring a supermajority would be. So we'll have over $1 breathing room between where our tax rate is and where that supermajority is. It's also important to note that the tax rates and assessed valuation, as presented in the hearing notice, should produce a revenue amount that's consistent with the current district budget expectations for 2017-18. So I'm happy to report there's no surprises here. Again, we will conduct a tax rate hearing on the 25th, during which final assessed valuations and rates will be presented, discussed, and public comment will be invited. In the meantime, I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have at this time.
Any questions? Excuse me, I just want a quick comment that all of the information in the report is available on the website for public to view and consider. Just had a question about the setting the hearing date 2 weeks in advance of the vote. That's voluntary. That was a voluntary practice on our part. There's no requirement that we do that, right?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
David,
Bruce, David's on the phone, sorry. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to confirm, so I believe that there is an additional opportunity for public comment related to the setting of the tax rate as part of that hearing. Is that correct?
At the tax rate hearing that we will have on the 25th, during that hearing, there will be the opportunity for public comment and input during that hearing.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, David?
No, that was it for right now.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Dr. Wiley.
Dr. Wiley. I know I'm late.
I just got your voice. Hello. How's everyone today?
Doing well.
So I wanted to present today kind of the state of HR, our strategic plan. And you'll notice, you probably have noticed, it looks a little bit different than it did last year. Really wanted to provide you with some substance, kind of what we are doing, who we hope to be, and kind of our next steps. So the agenda's there. You'll see that I'll kind of cover most of those points. At the very end of the presentation, there are a lot of supporting data charts. If you have any questions about those, I'd be happy to answer those, but didn't really want to go a lot of detail into it. Just really wanted to talk about the meat of who we are as an HR department and where we hope to go. Just want to highlight a couple of accomplishments that we did last year. I feel like it was a lot being my first year. I thank you all so much for your support, and we really got a lot done. I'm happy to note that we still have 100% of student participation in Adventure Club. We don't have any wait lists, never have. We plan to continue to fully staff that. We are still trying to streamline our approaches and modify our onboarding and exiting process for staff when they come on. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of background work that we do. We're just trying to expedite it and make it more user-friendly. We're happy to note that we have 2 new hires. You're probably aware that Susan O'Brien, she did retire last year, and so Gwendolyn Harris took her position as an HR generalist. And then Cara is our new office assistant. If you have not met her, she's right out front who supports us. Our staff is still heavily participating in Safe Schools training. We're really excited about that. People are always trying to say that they're the first to finish, but they typically aren't. But our staff are really doing that. We added an additional module to further expand our understanding related to reporting mandated reporting for students and staff. So that's been an update, as well as the work we did last year for active pay for support staff and nurses. Happy to report that our nurses are 100% staffed. As you remember, last year we had a substitute at Hudson for a while. Thanks to your support in approving that increase in the process we went through with the nurses, we're 100% with our nursing staff. We hired 2 last year, and so I think that was a lot of great work. We appreciate that. Some strengths that we have, I took this from words that I've heard from different people, in addition to people within our staff. The one I like the most is the second from the bottom. It said the HR department is nice and willing to serve. I think that is important. We are human resources. We are a resource for our humans. We're a resource for our community. And it's really important for us to remember and be. We don't just push paper. We're really here as a resource for our community. So we're going to continue to work on that and maintain that. That's very important to us. Our areas of growth, We really want to this year design and begin implementing a plan to recruit, hire, and retain professional staff of color. That's really going to be an emphasis. We're going to establish a new committee this year of different administrators, eventually filter it down to teachers. We really want to figure out together what does that look like, feel like, sound like, and how do we do it effectively. In addition to trying to centralize all of our departments, we have all of the different programs within the departments, and there's paper being passed, and, and it's just a lot. And we're just trying to figure out how can our HR onboarding and exiting process be more centralized and also be found in a computer system, in a program, so that I as an employee can pull up my HR file at any time and take a look at what documents are in there, what is actually in my file, and access my own personal information without having to call somebody or wait on someone to get it for me. So those are some things that we're working on that's going to take some time. We've been having conversations with a company called Paycor. And Paycor is a HR business management company that can help us streamline and computerize our onboarding and exiting process. So we have still some meetings with them to kind of see where we are, and we hope to bring that to you sooner than later, but just wanted to give you that update. Right now it takes a lot of manpower to onboard a person and then to exit a person in multiple departments, and just trying to figure out just an easier way to do that that's more user friendly. And then the next part I want to talk about are ESSA requirements, and ESSA is Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and that is related to that really took the place of No Child Left Behind. And so a lot of what I'll talk about in the next couple of slides are related to ESSA and what that means specifically to the Human Resources Department. So again, what is ESSA? Again, it's the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Currently, this is handed down from the federal government. It has replaced No Child Left Behind, we remember that. So currently, DESE, with related to the HR component, is currently working to establish a state plan to ensure equity and access to excellent educators for diverse student populations. And what does that mean? What does that mean in a nutshell? What they were finding is that a lot of diverse students in diverse populations, or diverse students, were not exposed to excellent educators. Oftentimes, those students have first-year teachers, or they have teachers that are deemed as not highly qualified. And so what DESE through ESSA is trying to ensure is that within any district, if you have students from diverse populations, that they have equal access to excellent educators. And so they will take a look at who our diverse student population is, what students are represented in those populations, and then take a look at the teachers that are in front of them to state up to 90% of the student population. We found that 50% of them were in front of first-year teachers. Is that something that you need to work on? Probably so. And so that's pretty much what ESSA related to the HR component is looking at, and they will be charging us as a school district to create a plan to be in compliance with that. So the ESSA requirements, again, is replacing No Child Left Behind. The overall goal is for ensuring equitable access to excellent educators. And so the HR requirements at the bottom is our role as an HR department. They want to ensure that we recruit high quality, culturally diverse educators, provide adequate quantity of teacher candidates, attract teacher candidates to hard to staff content areas, and then also to cultivate and develop effective student leaders. And so they're really looking for the districts to ensure that all of our students, but specifically our diverse student population, and when we say diverse, we're talking about students of color, students who have IEPs, students who have learning goals or behavioral concerns, that all of those students have equitable access to excellent educators. And so what does that mean for us? Or what might that look like? The U.S. Department of Education defined what they termed as an excellent educator. And it's really used as an umbrella term, and it's to describe a group of educators to students from low-income families and students of color should have equitable access. Again, they want teachers in front of students that will help them achieve their goal, help them meet the requirements, help them be on track to graduate from high school and be college and or career ready. And so they have defined, or they have 3 areas by which they're probably, if their plan is approved, will ask us to identify teachers if applicable. So remember the term highly qualified? All of our teachers had to be highly qualified. The term is going away. Highly qualified just pretty much meant that you had the certification to teach in your content area. So if you were a chemistry teacher, you had chemistry certification. Physics teacher, physics certification. So they're wanting to replace that term highly qualified with the term ineffective teacher. So what really is an ineffective teacher? The opposite of an excellent educator. But that will be something that districts will have to determine and figure out within themselves, because we will have to then report that to DESE annually, teachers that we may deem as ineffective, those teachers who are not preparing students to be on track to graduate from high school. Another ranking would be an out-of-field teacher. That's a teacher that has outside certification in the area that they're teaching. So I'm a biology teacher, I teach biology courses, but I have math certification. That would be an out-of-field teacher. And then an inexperienced teacher, which is really just a first-year teacher. And so no district is going to get away from the first-year teacher, that inexperienced one. That's the reality. But again, the whole purpose of that is to figure out if our disadvantaged students or our diverse population students are only being exposed to those first-year teachers, or to those teachers who are ineffective, or the teachers that are out of field. So that'll be something that DESE will take a look at. They'll calculate our teachers based on the rating that we have, take a look at our student population, and then they'll give us a report that will let us know if we are disproportionate in our rates with regard to that. If that is the case, then we will have to conduct a root cause analysis and develop strategies to eliminate those disproportionate rates. I don't predict that that will be us at all. 100% of our teachers are in whatever they're certified for, that's what they're teaching. We've double-checked and triple-checked that. Of course, we will have first-year teachers, that's inevitable. However, they are not the majority of our teaching staff. The majority of our teaching staff have experiences. And then the ineffective teacher, currently we don't have any listed as such, and we don't even know what that means related to Webster. That's something that we have to figure out and sit down as a group to determine and figure out what that looks like, sounds like for us.
So DESE is not putting any definitions out there for that?
The only one they provided to us is that what they deem as an excellent educator. They will have equity labs that they're going to give us more information and feedback related to this. We plan to attend one in October, I think it's October 15th, I'm uncertain, it's in Lawrenceburg, Missouri. So we plan to go down there and learn a little bit more. A lot of the HR people asked the same question, and we're very concerned about that, because of course no district wants to say, oh, we got 20 ineffective teachers. You know, is that something that you really want to put out there? And someone said, the state runs the risk of people just saying, yeah, we're 100%. So what does that look like, feel like? And that's again why they set up these labs, to continue to get feedback and to continue to help us have a better understanding of what that is. So we'll continue to do that. We will definitely have to establish a committee of Webster Grove staff members and community in order to define this, in order to help us have a better understanding. So all of that work is to come, but this is something I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on, because it's not just the hiring of staff, but it's also making sure that our students of color, our students that have IEPs, those students that are in that bucket, they have equitable access to what we deem as excellent teachers.
I have a question. Isn't this more of a regional issue than a Webster Groves issue? We have
Yes.
the same pool of teachers, and we're paying fairly well and have a good reputation. But what are some of those districts doing that have trouble recruiting teachers? Is there anything in the DESE plan to say how they can recruit better teachers?
No, and they really don't give you a lot of feedback with regard to that. There was a presentation when I went to this conference. They were talking about pipelines and how do you try to recruit, but at the same time, some districts will not be able to compete with other districts with their salary schedule, location, etc. And so again, that's why they're setting up the equity lab, so they can continue to get the feedback and tweak anything that's needed, that needs that tweaking before it's actually in effect.
I think the big effect for us isn't so much, well, you know, we've got this goal of hiring more staff of color, but in looking at making determinations on, you know, your best teachers, and are they working with the students that they need to be working with? You know, how are you ensuring that your kids who struggle the most are getting your most highly effective?
Is it gonna
And
be
we
really
have a lot of talented teachers, but how do you make that determination? And so,
And will you be working with SSD then too, to make sure that some of our special needs kids are getting the best teachers?
yeah, I mean, and there are a lot, you know, most of our kids are also in the gen ed setting too, so it's definitely all of them. So
Okay, so,
SSD,
yeah.
it would certainly, partnering with them is big too.
I just see a problem, you know, with the overall reach of all the districts trying to solve, you know, closing the learning gap, you know, and all of a sudden everybody's gonna have different definitions for closing that gap.
So again, I'll attend that equity lab and get some more feedback and hopefully bring some more information back to you as we continue to try to figure it out with Dusty. What I wanted to do, knowing that under our talent development section of our goals for this year and years to come, of course, we want to make sure that we are recruiting, hiring, and retaining professional staff of color. These are two new graphs that I wanted to share with you. I just compared 16, 17, and 17, 18, even though the top goes from 2012, the numbers are pretty much the same. But you'll see that the number of staff, professional staff that we hire for this year, 92.8% of our professional staff, and this is just certificated teaching staff, administrators, just teaching, 92.8% are white and 7.2 are black. African American, and then you see there for the female teachers and then the male teachers. This will be kind of our foundational base that we begin to kind of take a look and see if the work that we're doing in our committees with regard to retaining and hiring professional staff, if these numbers begin to fluctuate, and that's what we hope. That, you know, we want to take a look at that and see the numbers, you know, kind of figuring to show that we are actually hiring people that are mirroring our student body. The next graph there, I just wanted to take a look at our new hire demographics and just ask, you know, just, hey, you know, people we hired for 17, 18, again, these are still teachers. What do they look like? So our new administrators, I want to preface, one has no experience, but she has experience as administrator, just not as a principal. She was an assistant principal, and that's why I marked her there. And then you look at our certificated or certified teachers, 10 had no experience and 17 did have experience. You see that we did actually hire 3 African-American certified teachers for the 17-18 school year, and 1 administrator. And then you also note how many of them were internal versus external. There's some overall points related to our goal of hiring and retaining candidates of color. None of our certified teachers were African American. None of them were internal hires. All of our African Americans that we hired were all external, and they all had experience. None of them came with 0 experience. The other thing that kind of stuck out to me when I was taking a look at it was that all of our early hires, and when I say early, I'm thinking about the teachers we hired in April. We knew people were retiring, and we went on ahead and hired them for 17, 18. All of them were white with experience or were internal candidates, excluding our administrators. So all of our African American candidates that we hired were hired after kind of that late May, June-ish, kind of later in that area. And that's just some points for me to consider and process and have in my brain. What are our hiring practices? What does this look like, feel like, sound for us? Was it just this year? I don't know. But again, these are new graphs, and I just wanted to share them with you and hope to continue to add to them so we can kind of get a feel of who we're hiring when and see if we can develop some patterns.
When you say that you are looking to hire more staff of color, are you meaning just African Americans, or like what are you meaning?
Staff that actually mirror our student body, so any minority, Asian, any minority there, not just African American.
It's largely African American because our Hispanic and our Asian and some of the different populations are pretty small.
They are.
But yeah.
My learning, I did attend the MOASPA conference that was the weekend before, or the weekend of Labor Day. I participated in what's called a poverty simulation. Lanita Harrison went as well, she participated as well. It's very powerful. I put a link there. It's from the Community Action Organization. This was a very, very powerful simulation that we went through, and I'll just give you a little bit, I don't want to talk too long, but when you walk into the room, they give you a lanyard and there's a picture on it, and you have to become the person that's on there. And so I was a little 13-year-old girl. I had a twin sister, and then we had a brother who was 21, and then we had a baby brother. And we were asked to sit in chairs together, and then at some point they told us that we are going to live as if we were 13-year-old. Yeah, I was a 13-year-old girl. I needed to behave as such. And then we opened up a folder that kind of told our life story. And so in my family, my father was incarcerated. He would be there for at least 45 days. We had $200 cash. However, we still needed to pay the utilities for that month. We still needed to buy food for that month. And then our brother needed to get, of course, the baby brother to daycare in order for him to go to college. And so you kind of live a week in 15 minutes. So they'll say, you know, take a look at your information, figure out what you need to do, and then time goes, set. Meanwhile, around the room, the perimeter of the room, you have different social services organizations. So you have people that are there that can help you with food stamps. So you have people that are there can help you with employment opportunities. You also had like payday loan places, right? You had a variety of different companies that you would find in some of these neighborhoods. And so it was powerful for me because we were just trying to survive. And as a 13-year-old, I would come home and my brother would tell me that he didn't make it to class because he had to go and get food stamps, or he had to go and get a job because they had supposed to be 45 days, but we didn't know for certain. The more powerful piece for me was when I had to go to school, and when I arrived, they gave me a card and said, you need to bring back $5 for a field trip the next day. I knew we didn't have $5. I knew we didn't. So I had to sell our food stamps in order for us to make money to pay the bills and then for us to have things. But it kind of put things in perspective because we may have families who may be struggling or may not have the resources or may have that situation that I was in. And truthfully, you know, going to school and getting $5 to one kid is not that big of a deal, but for me, I knew we didn't have it. And then the next day I went to school, I needed to bring back $3. And I'm like, oh my God, you know. And some of the adults there were really behaving like 13-year-olds. So like, how'd you get $5? Give me that $5, you know. And it was just really powerful to see and to really live, even for that moment. I don't think that we gave it the honor that it's due for those families who are struggling. But it is something that I've talked with John about and the DOT about maybe how can we talk this through and make it come alive for us here at Webster. What might that look like, feel like, sound like? It just gives you a different perspective on really truthfully what it is like for some families who just don't have or can't meet their own basic needs at any given time.
Yeah, those are very powerful simulations, and I would encourage you to go to that website and you can kind of semi-go through that. But having been through those are, I think it helps us understand when we ask kids to provide finances or provide certain kinds of resources, school supplies, or you need to be there at this time when transportation is an issue, and all these factors where survival is really the key for some families that they're trying to get through.
Transportation was huge. So they would say everywhere you went, you need a transportation pass. And so, you know, to get to work, our brother needed a transportation pass, but if he needed food stamps, he still needed a transportation pass. And then he had to go to the payday loan to get it. It was just, but in order to go to payday loan, you need a transportation pass. And so it was just, you really see yourself in that situation. Funny you mentioned transportation because that was the biggest barrier for getting a lot of things done for a lot of the families. We also learned that the Missouri State Highway Patrol will be doing an audit on districts in St. Louis County. Kirkwood and Fort Zumwalt has already had their audit, and they're just going to come in and take a look at our practice. What do we do with our staff trained? How do we secure files and ensure everything is in order? I am not certain on when they're coming. They will give us notice, but just wanted to let you know that that's something that they're planning to do. And then also they suggested that we do an audit of our HR department, just to have someone on the outside coming in and taking a look at our practice to see if what we're doing is effective and if what, make sure everything is in order. And so that's something that I processed and thought about. But I think it would be good for us, pretty much, the department is new. And so what do we do? How are we doing business? What do we do as a department? And so I think that would be good for us. But I thank you for the opportunity to, that PD money that you put there for us to attend, because it's very powerful. It's very good information that we learn each year. For 17-18, I just wanted to let you guys know that we will assess the teacher PBTE to determine its alignment with support of our district vision, beliefs, and goals. That is another goal that we'll work on. So this year, our PBTE committee will begin to review our PBTE processing tools. Overall, we just want to make sure that our current evaluation system matches our expectations for student learning. And then knowing at some point we're going to have to provide DESE with the status of our teachers, we want to make sure that everything is in order. So we'll process that this year. Not sure if anything will come of it. It may, it may not, but I'll keep you guys updated on that. Here are some extra talking points. We had some objectives in 2016, and on the left are those objectives, and then the right is just kind of our updates from those objectives. And just for you guys to review, I want to continue to give you feedback on what we stated we were going to do versus what we've actually completed and what we are working on. The big one I want to point out is number 6, developing the HR vision. I think that is crucial for our department. We don't want to be the people that are just pushing paper and following processes. We really want to figure out how we can have a vision and support the community, support our staff, support everyone as best we can. So we'll be trying to figure that out as a group, as a department, with feedback. What's our vision? What do we want to do outside of just filing FMLA paperwork? There's got to be something else related to HR. Those things are important. However, I think that we can be a greater resource for people in the community. The supporting data, again, those charts are there, and some of those charts that you were used to seeing. Again, unless there are any questions about any of these charts in particular, didn't want to talk you through them unless you guys had any specific questions or comments.
Questions for Dr. Warren? Jean?
I just had a question on nurses. Are we fully staffed for Camp Lyman? I heard that was a challenge in previous years.
It is definitely a challenge. We are waiting to hear back from Maxim right now. I think we're about 75% of the way.
Mm-hmm. And are we paying more for that kind of fill-in nurse as well?
Yes, we do pay Maxim more per hour. Their hourly rate is $37 per hour. This year, we were able to get 2 of our nurses to go down there to support, which is good. And so we'll have to find someone to cover them here. But it's not 24, it's not a 24-hour thing. So we are about 75% of the way. I think there's 1 week that Maxim is still trying to figure out for us.
Okay, thank you.
For the teacher ratios for K through 8, it's under or above the Missouri rate. Is there anything that we're working to do to lower that?
Well, you mean for 17-18?
Yes.
I don't have that number yet for Missouri.
Well, for in the past.
For the past, yeah.
Yes.
And you have to understand that's kind of an average. So there may be some classrooms that are at 21, but there may be some classrooms at 15. So it doesn't mean that all of our classes have 21 in them. It just means that's kind of where when we take a look at our students versus our teachers, where they kind of fall. But in general, our class sizes are not 21 across the board.
And isn't the state allowed actually much higher than that?
That is correct.
Do you know what that is right now?
Have you spoken close to the microphone to get your question?
Sorry about that. I was just asking what the state allowed classroom size is, the state mandated maximum.
Yeah, even for kindergarten, you never want to say this out loud, but for kindergarten, they allow up to 25.
They're suggested. It's not like you're ever fixed. Like it's never like you can't have more than. They're suggestions.
Right.
So.
All right, thank you very much. But you can't go.
No. The next piece I want to talk to you guys about is The volunteer process, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read that little short memo that I put in the board document. What we have found is that we've received a lot of our parents have called in and or come in to express some concerns with the volunteer process. So currently, if you don't know, what happens is schools notify parents and volunteers that if you want to volunteer, here's the process. There's 4 forms you need to complete. You submit it to the school then submits it to HR. We then process it, then we let the school know if the parent is approved or cleared, and then the school lets the parent know. The problem sometimes that we face is that parents, and I get it, I have a little boy, and sometimes I am not on top of the paperwork that the school gives, I'm sorry. But you look up and it's Wednesday and it's a field trip on Friday, and you really want to go when you fill out the volunteer paperwork on a Wednesday for a Friday trip. However, with the volunteer background process, you may or may not get the results back by Friday. It just depends. Yeah.
Dr. Wiley, just a clarification, this isn't regarding any sort of like PTO events and things like that. This is for actual school events, in school or out of school type field trips, as you mentioned, is a perfect example. So, okay.
With students, yes.
With students.
Correct.
Right.
And so what we found were a number of parents, and rightfully so, that were frustrated at the process. Additionally, some of them were frustrated at having to provide their social security number in order to run background checks for the Missouri State Highway Patrol and also for the sex offender registry. With the current process we have, you must have the social security number written on a piece of paper, and that's what we process. And with identity theft really is a reality for a lot of our families, and some of our families have been victims of it. We have a lot of parents that are saying, no, I just want to go on one field trip with my child. You need my social security number for that? And our current policy does state we need the background check. If they're going to be around children with small groups, working one-on-one, we need that. And so we have met with administrative assistants, with parents. We had a parent group last week, again, one-on-one with a number of parents. And so I've done some research on a couple of visitor management systems. This is one that I've talked to a little bit more, one that seems a little bit easier. It's called Rapture. And I will just show the video really quickly, and the sound is going to work. I know that it is. So that you guys can kind of get a feel for what the process could look like in lieu of what we currently have.
Here's how Raptor Technologies' industry-leading visitor management system works. Your new visitors give front desk personnel their government-issued ID. The staff member at your school places the ID on the scanner connected to your Raptor system. Raptor hunts through the sex offender registries of all 50 states. It also checks your database for any custodial issues or other customized alerts. If a match or a potential match is found, Raptor alerts you immediately. The Raptor system can also notify security personnel or local law enforcement via text message. If the visitor is cleared, Raptor prints a badge with all of the necessary information: the visitor's name, their destination, and a picture with the date and time. That's how it works. Contact us today to find out how Raptor can protect your school.
And so what this will do, it just eliminates needing a social on a piece of paper. It eliminates a potentially 2-week process to get a parent notification just to attend a field trip with his or her child, which is truthfully, and our parents are telling me the system is just not welcoming for them. I mean, I get that. And this could be a remedy to that. So just wanted to show it to you, get any questions or feedback that you may have.
I think that's outstanding technology, and as far as the timing of them providing that information, then you would simply then say, well, the field trip begins at this time of day, you have to be able to provide that information X number of hours or X number of days before to be cleared for that?
That's a great question, and that's something that the parents talked about, and they actually had great suggestions of maybe like a volunteer, like during open house or in conjunction with open house, a volunteer open house, for lack of a better term, where HR staff could come and parents can go ahead and just have their badge or their license scanned then. And they're
So
already
cleared
in the
ahead of
database.
time.
Cleared ahead of time.
Okay.
So that I'm already in the database, my name is already on the list. So when the field trip comes in October, there's nothing needed. The teacher will have a list that says, these are the parents that are cleared, and they just show up for the field trip.
Would people be willing to do that once every 6 months or once every year?
What we put out.
Or what's
there
our school
annually.
year?
Yeah, annually. But what happens is the system, so once you go in and you have your license scanned, you're in the system. So anytime I come back to volunteer, if they type my name in, whenever they print a badge, it'll run my name again. So that's the nice part about.
Oh, so it's multiple use,
Yeah.
not just the one time. Okay.
Correct. So every time again I come in to visit, they type my name, I get a badge, it's run my name again.
Because God forbid something happens in a year, but I mean, that way.
Because things happen, you know, unfortunately, people do, unfortunately, get in trouble with the law, and that helps with that.
Do they have any problems with Missouri IDs at this point? Because I know there's a lot of things going around about whether or not the actual Missouri driver's license is an accepted. Because I know you can't travel using a Missouri
And social
ID.
security number isn't necessarily on that.
No, I'm not talking about social security number. I'm talking about the actual driver's license. There's been.
It's real ID now.
It's not,
supposedly.
I think there's a deadline when Missouri's driver's license will no longer be accepted as a, yeah.
Police number. And they scanned my license and it was just fine.
Okay.
I didn't come up red or anything.
That was just something that was a kind of a current events question that I didn't know if that had been addressed.
Yes, we did ask that question, and she scanned mine in front of me and it came up just fine.
Okay, thank
I
you.
guess the overall is that parents can go ahead and pre-register. At least they'll be in the system, so when it comes time for them to go again, it's just putting their names in, and if you come up clean, you go, if not.
Yeah. Now, they
Right.
do have, and I'll come back to your question, Gina, I'm sorry, they do have another portion that for like maybe the parents that maybe want to come in and do more in-depth volunteering, where they'll be spending maybe 2 hours with a small group of kids.
Like after-school enrichment or something like that.
Could be that we could add an online application to our own Webster Grove School District website where they would go in themselves and put their information in a secured location. That would be an additional $5, but we're already paying for some background checks. If that's what we wanted, we could have that option set up as well for parents to be able to do that. But just in general, if I want to attend a field trip with my child, I can just scan and go.
Sounds good.
I'm looking at this policy, GBEBC, and we did just review it last June 2016. The board approved the changes, and I can't remember what changes we made. But it does look like we have a lot of flexibility. The district will conduct a search of the MSHP's criminal history database and the FCSR or the CD Center Registry of Child Abuse and Neglect on all persons volunteering, and this is where it's key, in positions where they will be left alone with a single child. And then it gives all kinds of authority to do more in-depth searches. But on some of those field trips, for example, it seems like we're being overly cautious, which is good. And we are checking anyone that is with a group of kids on a bus. Okay, so it's not that we change the policy
No.
to make it, a more rigorous check of all parents. It's just, that's ours.
Right. We looked at that
Correct.
one, and then also policy IICC, where it talks about a federal criminal records check is included in the volunteer screening process. Volunteers in the district is a privilege, not a right. All information is collected, da. So there are two that kind of talk about us doing some type of check. I think that could take care of that, and we're not in violation of policy at all.
So if we approved, funding for Raptor or anything else, would we have to change policies first?
Again, the piece, there's this policy GBEBC does talk about one-on-one, if you're one-on-one with a student, and that's where that application could come into play. And if they're gonna be, like if I'm volunteering to 3 days a week, an hour with one student,
Tutoring,
they want
yeah.
a little bit more in-depth information, we can do it online at $5. The turnaround for that is anywhere between 4 to 48 hours. We can mandate that for those type, but just for a field trip, I don't know that we would want to do that.
I think anytime we can use technology to assist being more hospitable to our patrons, I think that's good. Second thing, is there a protocol that we've thought about if parents come back and they have a violation?
Yes, I'm happy you asked that, yeah. So what the secretary, the administrative assistant will see if I'm coming in and they scan my license, they'll see one side and then they'll see the other side which just shows red, which shows them as a pause. And so the recommendation is for them just to say, have a seat, we'll have someone get with you momentarily. And then the administrator would come, that information will come directly to me. I'm the only one that would have access to what that red means. And then we can then take a look at it and deduce and determine from there what next steps would be for that parent in particular and volunteering within the school. So we haven't talked through that holistically yet. We just wanted to get a feel and see if this is somewhere that we should go. And then we can develop those protocols as we go.
And are there alternatives to this particular kind of technology? And if there are not, what is a general cost for something like this? Is it a district cost? Is it a cost per building? Should I not have asked that question? Is it in the budget? What are all those things?
There are, the other ones that I've looked at are very, very similar, but they're a little bit more expensive, and this company is willing to give us a discount. Of course, your implementation year is your most expensive year. Their cost is per building, and it's really for the technology, which is why you pay more the first year. So for each building, it's a total of $1,600 for that initial start. So it's that $1,600 for that, and then we also have to pay for that annual fee. And so I don't think that that's too expensive at 16 times 9 buildings that we have. So then annually, our cost would be about $4,800. I'm a negotiator, so I'm gonna try to get that down. I don't believe in paying full price for anything. But annually at about $4,800. John and I have talked about which budget that will come from. And so HR does a lot of that work, and so we do have money in our budget in order to pay for that and fund that. Again, knowing that that first hit will be that implementation year, and we're okay with that. And then after that, it would be that $4,800 that we would pay for that. And again, if we wanted to have a bank of maybe $100 or $200 for those $5 ones that would be more intensive, then we can establish that as well, and they'll just bill us and not the parent when they're filling up, or the volunteer.
Okay. Any security measures that we use to keep our kids safe as well?
Yeah.
I think it's good that the parents can decide, yes, today they want to go on a field trip Friday and still make it happen.
Right.
If your schedule changes, whatever happens, suddenly you're free to go, and you'd hate for people to miss those opportunities.
And that's the nice part about it. I mean, because you can someone even asked about volunteers that would come every day. You can pre-print those badges. Like if the admin assistant knows Sandy Whiten comes every Tuesday, Thursday, she can reprint it, when she gets in on Tuesday and have them there ready to go. That is the nice part about it. That you have the flexibility to get those ready. You're not standing at the desk filling out a paper once it in off. It's already there. Pick it up and you can go.
And you could use it for anybody coming into the building.
Yeah. The picture that's on there is the picture from your driver's license. It pulls that off and prints that onto the badge. That's what's on there.
John, is there any school besides Avery that currently has a little printer for their name badges?
Yeah, there's a few. They're the ones who use it the most diligently.
So it would kind of make those obsolete.
Yeah, it would. And more meaningful, there's a lot more information in these than those,
Right.
I think a lot of people felt that those were kind of harder to use than just having a sign in, sign out sheet of paper. Avery's the one that still uses it well. I know Bristol had it, it's my daughter, of course, but there's a few other schools, but none that I ever see anymore. Yeah.
Maybe you could save money by selling those on Craigslist or something.
But like Lanita and I last year, there was a few different things we were dealing with heartbroken parents because now the schools had sent out communication about make sure you do the volunteer stuff, to make sure you apply for the volunteer stuff, but it just came to that moment, they hadn't done it, and they wanted to go. In some cases you know them, but that's not fair to say, okay, I know you, I don't know what your criminal history is, I know you, I trust you as a good person, we have to be fair to everybody, and they've waited for that field trip since their child was in kindergarten, and their tears, and so and people have busy lives, and paperwork sometimes doesn't make it home, and so it would service those families really well too, in addition to being much safer, I think.
I think the the technology is great. I'm more impressed with this as an example of hearing parents' complaints / concerns. It would have been easy to say, well, we're legally required to do this, but I'm just very impressed that you listened to them, sat down, worked collaboratively to try to come up with a solution that would be better. So I'm impressed with the whole process. Thank you. All right. Our next item was going to go back to
Me
is it
now.
you now?
Yeah. Told Chris. Chris had a very long day working with her PD team all day, and so I told her I could cover the ACT thing. The gist of the ACT is that the state is no longer paying for the ACT. It's a travesty. The fact that they will continue to pay for math tests that are a mess at this moment with our high school end of course exams, but they don't pay for a test that's meaningful and purposeful for kids, is nationally normed, valid, reliable.
And they just started paying for it.
And they just started paying for it like 2 to 3 years ago. So they're no longer paying for it. And so what we've made the decision, we've talked with some different districts, there's a lot of people that are moving to providing it. Without the writing, which will come at a cost of $45 per student, so it'll be $16,000 to provide. But we feel that it's worth it. It gives some of our kids opportunity to take it or take it a second time, whereas they wouldn't have had that opportunity before. And so we're looking this year at your first budget adjustment to kind of make that adjustment, and then we'll determine in the future what line's that going to come out of.
Is that just to take the assessment?
That's just to taste the assessment. It's $45 per child, and it would be $16 additional if you added the writing component.
John, I had asked Chris about that, and she said the testing period for this will be in April, is what the
April
proposal
3rd.
is, and there would not be an opportunity to take the written test then, that they'll just be administering the standard test. So if that's true, we need to make sure that parents whose kids want to take the writing test
Yeah.
or are applying to schools that require it know those testing dates
Yeah.
in advance, and maybe then they wouldn't want to take the free test.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what's been with the state providing it, is that April test that you just took during the day.
Right.
So you didn't have to come in on a Saturday, you don't have transportation issues.
Yeah.
Right, I know it's, very convenient, but just to make sure that people know, because I'm sure there are parents that think the state's still paying for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to,
Any type of preparation for the test deal?
Tremendous amount of preparation. I used to work with the folks, and Chris has done it. There's a lot of work that goes into the high school because you're also providing accommodations for 365, a lot of big student body. And so most of the testing takes place in the gymnasium. But we have kids receiving, small group testing, having tests read to them, scattered all over the schools. And so you have to plan to be as efficient as possible. You have to plan your breaks out, you have to plan your snack out. So it's a lot of work that goes into the planning. And in the high school, I will say that the high school counselors do the bulk of that. We support it from the CNI office, but high school counselors and the SSD staff also does a tremendous job.
I would hate to think that it would be a determining factor about what a child uses the results to decide what their next steps are, but I would assume that there might be at least 1 or 2 students that just don't want to take it every year. They're not required to take it. They can opt out, correct?
Well, it was required, but we certainly had students.
When the state was paying for it.
Right, but then we had students who wouldn't show up, and it wasn't something that would prohibit them from graduating if they didn't take it.
Okay.
It was interesting when we first started looking at some of the data on the early returns, because our kids have done really pretty well on this when you have your whole student body. We were averaging like a 23.4, 23.3. The state would also provide what percentage of your student body took the assessment. And so you would see maybe some districts that maybe had a little bit higher score, but they had like 10% of their kids not testing. So we always had a pretty good percent. We didn't have 100% by any means, and we weren't the highest, but we had a good percentage of our students that were taking the test. Yeah.
So I know in past years, we also provided the pre-ACT. Will that be provided this year as well?
Yes, it will be.
or is that the pre-SAT?
Pre-ACT.
Yeah, I think now it's the pre-ACT.
Okay, so we
So
don't
the
do the
PSAT.
PSAT and MSQT
Yeah.
test
No.
anymore?
No.
You can pay for it, I think.
If
Yeah,
you want a
it's-
National Merit
yeah.
Scholarship, you have to take that one,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Yes, so.
All right, thank you. Next up,
John, are you looking for anything for?
No, not at this point. That'll come in your budget adjustment in October, Bruce, is that right?
No, it'll be late
Sep-
November, early December.
So it'll be a while down the road. So what we're
I
gonna,
think both of those are worthwhile budget items.
yeah, we have the money to do it.
State of the District event.
State of the District event is really just kind of getting your thoughts and ideas. So on October 17th, last year we did a vision event where people got to come and they got to hear me talk about our district vision, how it applies to the classroom. We had some classroom teachers that kind of gave examples of the district vision, how they apply it in their classroom at all levels. And then we opened up the mic to question and answer session. And we answered questions through an hour and a half, and then we dismissed people, and we said, we'll stick around, we'll talk about anybody who wants to stay and we'll talk. And so we walked out of there ultimately at about 10 o'clock at night. Kara was there. Kara was very supportive that night. So what we're doing this time around is it's kind of along with that communication plan, is having a State of the District event. And each of my core administrative team at this level is going to plan a 6 to 10 minute kind of state of their current department, goals that they're working on. And we're kind of going to rotate through the different people. And then at the end, we're going to offer opportunity for anybody in the audience to ask questions. We're going to live stream the event so that anybody who doesn't want to show up, wants to watch it at home in their pajamas or while they're making dinner can do that. It'll be videotaped. We're also going to try and provide childcare for parents that would come if they had the childcare. From this event, we're going to look at some of the core things that came out of it, and then we're going to use it kind of to also go into the different city governments and maybe give a little spiel to each of them on just the state of the district, which is also aligned with our goals of how to build stronger relationships with our different cities and city governments. What I wanted from you all tonight, and again, that's October 17th at 7 p.m. in Knight Auditorium. So what I've asked my team to do is by September 22nd is to give me what do you feel is the content that you feel is important to share that night, and see how it vets with what I feel from your departments is key. But I wanted to open it up to you guys, and you don't have to share it tonight. You could send me an email. What do you feel is important to put out there for the community at this particular event?
I just want to say this is such a great idea. I can't believe that we haven't done this. Like you hear it and you're like, of course we should do this.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Yep, excellent idea.
I'll think about,
Yeah.
does anybody have
Kind of on
anything
the
that they want to recommend? Or should we give it some thought and get back to you?
Well, I mean, again, they've been thinking on it, proposals have already been coming in, so when we think about some of the HR, some of the goals that we've presented, when we talk about, the 3-year budget, the comprehensive facilities plan, energy, so we've already got some of these different things we're planning on, but if there's anything you think we may have missed that you think would be important, and certainly that night, many of you will probably be able to be presented that night, you could always say, hey, John M., would you talk about what we're doing with this?
John, can you mention it to Joe? I'd love for Trinity and Joe to be involved in the event too.
Yeah.
And to make sure that if there's any other students that have ideas, that you can share, because I think it's all about the kids.
Interesting to talk about the new, we've got a number of new principals leading buildings. Perhaps if they could give their impression as to what they find when it comes to their old environment into the Western Road schools. I think we could get some very valuable insights. I think that people would be interested in that.
Okay. So having them present, David?
I come to you. I mean,
Okay.
I don't want to go and sort of start going and making staff who are already working very, very hard to get some of their personal time going to have to do other things as well. I would leave it up to them. But I just think that if they can do it, it would be great, because they're coming from some very different experiences in the Western, but not if you thought it was going to be a big imposition.
Okay. Thank you.
Tagging on to what David just said, since we have a new administration, basically, I think it'd be a good idea to make them visible, exactly show, what direction that the district is going in, what our goals are, how we respect to achievement. Dr. Skinner did a lot of good examples of how we want to improve in hiring. I think all that's good information to share.
Okay.
I personally would like, I would be interested in hearing more about what our district does in cooperation with SSD to serve kids with disabilities and their families. That's an area I continually hear frustration about and have experienced some of that frustration as a parent of two kids with special needs. So I think that would be a topic of interest to many.
Good, thank you for saying that. I agree with you.
Anybody else?
Feel free to email
Yeah.
me anything.
Should there be, is that on our calendar?
It is.
Should be.
The event is not the deadline.
Did you e-calendar it for us?
I think, but I'll make sure.
All right, we now have our second opportunity for public comments. And everyone is leaving. All right.
I'd like to make
Debbie.
a public comment.
Good.
It's a long trek to get there.
My name's Debbie Sahlberg. I live in the district, and I have a son who graduated from Webster Groves Schools. Over the weekend, I reviewed the board documents, and I found a number of acronyms that were used that I was not familiar with. ESEA, MOASPA, PDAA, PERS/PSRS, HRCI, SHRM, GBEDC. I couldn't find an explanation in the document for what those acronyms meant. We all use acronyms. I do in my work, but however, technical writing protocol is that you spell it out once. You use the words, you put the acronym in every document where the acronym is used. I would respectfully request that all board documents utilize that protocol to help us non-school professionals understand what the information being presented is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Buck.
Dave Buck. First of all, I have not met you, but I want to welcome the student advisor, and I look forward to, and I hope you get a chance to vote sometime this year.
Thank
This
you.
year, advise. This is not a criticism, this is an opportunity. Martin Luther King said that his deepest hope for his daughters was that they wouldn't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. The content of their character. Paul Tubb, in his book, How Children Succeed, after extensive research with educators, said that intelligence and academic achievement are the number 2 determinants of success. But what matters most is character and personal values. I just think that there's an opportunity for the district at every level of the school to do a better job of character education by and large. For example, at the high school, you have the 5 things that are up on the wall: respect, responsibility, supportive, safe, and education. I'm not discounting any of those. I'm saying it's an incomplete list. Because what about personal values? Timeless, universal personal values like compassion, kindness, acceptance, forgiveness, fairness, humility, and the list goes on. We can teach those things. Because on the flip side, things like racism, you're not born with that. You're taught that. You learn that. Same thing with the other side, compassion. You aren't born compassionate, you learn compassion. And this school has, I think, an opportunity, if not an obligation, to do a better job of teaching the full array of character values that are going to serve these kids for the rest of their lives. And what I found so interesting despite the tragedy of Hurricane Harvey and Irma, is that intolerance, bigotry, racism all went away. Why? Because people would come out, and black, white, Chinese, Jew, Muslim, whatever, people came out to help each other because we were all part of the human race. That's compassion. That's empathy. That's sacrifice. And I think our district has an opportunity to do a much better job of doing that, given how important it is in the world today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Other public comments? All right, seeing none. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Notice our numbering's a little bit different now. We've got 1s, 2s, and 3s rather than A, B's, and C's.
I would move that we approve consent agenda items 7.01, 7.02, 7.03, 7.04, and 7.05.
I'll second.
Gene, I believe. All right, moved and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You know what's left, folks.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Did you
I'll
beat me
second.
to it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in favor of
I second.
Are you still there, David?
All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
All right, good night, David.
Good night, David.
Not bad.